Greetings, nerds. This is Scene and Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, sir. Happy Monday. Happy Diwali.
So weird. So
Yeah,
strange to be recording on a Monday.
it is. It's been a
Like,
while.
usually the podcast recording is is an event where I'm like, okay, it's later in the week when we're
Yeah,
kicking the feet with it.
yeah,
It doesn't feel like Monday. But then again, it's definitely Monday because we got our last episode of House of Dragon last night.
we did.
We had a blockbuster opening weekend occur, and a few other things happen within the 2 weeks that we last recorded. So we have some stuff to talk about tonight for sure.
Yeah. There's quite a few things that happened where I was joking before we got started how we went from like maybe one or two news items to all of a sudden, like, I think I have 6 bullets here now. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
really the only news item was Creed 3 trailer.
yeah.
Because that dropped. And I'm sorry, okay, where have people been? I have said since Comic-Con,
Yeah.
I saw one interview with Jonathan Majors on a couch next to Paul Rudd, and that it's visually scarred in my mind what this looks like, the size ratio
hmm
difference. Like, I don't need Jonathan Majors to have his shirt off, although I like it very much when it's off, but I don't need it to know that the man is freaking jacked and huge. Like,
Yeah.
he is a beast.
Yeah.
And I say that with the utmost respect.
No,
Um,
no.
but
Brother,
yeah,
brother swole.
yeah, all have been sleeping, but it just took this trailer, and the sad thing is, this is Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, but all
Mhm.
we can talk about is Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, the trailer was really good. I mean, whenever, given that we this is a spinoff of the Rocky franchise, and you know, people were wondering like, okay, is it going to parallel the Rocky track where, in the third film, are we going to have an updated version of Clubber Lang?
Uh-huh.
And so, but it looks like here is really is going to be an original story, and Stallone is actually not involved with this project. And I know,
Right.
Stallone has recently grumbled about how he felt screwed out of some of the royalties and other things from Rocky, from the studio and others. But getting back to Creed, yeah, this story basically looks like where Jonathan Majors is playing a childhood friend of Adonis,
Yep.
and gets in trouble and goes off to prison, and he comes back out, and and of course Adonis is going to try to help him out, and then of course it sets off the whole collision course because apparently uh, Jonathan Majors' character is like a boxing prodigy, so it just seems like it's going to be a very explosive, very strong story, and I know it releases on March the 3rd, so yeah, can't wait for it. I was actually trying to like rewatch Creed this weekend, but then it's like all you have to, it's interestingly enough, you got to rent it still, and no streaming service has it included in their like basic package. So I'm like, okay,
Weird. Weird.
yeah,
I so I'm gonna say something controversial. I
yeah,
actually don't think that this is a great trailer because it gives away pretty much 5 or 6 or 10 of the story beats.
yeah. Well, a lot of them do
That
that.
means so much. Um, I already feel like I've seen the movie.
Yeah,
To me, it doesn't parallel Rocky 3, like you said. But there are some aspects where I'm like, oh, they're leaning into Rocky 4 a
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
They're
definitely.
leaning a bit hard there. Like, I know this isn't, they're not making it like Russia versus the US or a
Yeah,
political statement or anything, but
yeah,
they're doing something else. The parallels there. Um, yeah, I think that from a perspective of wanting people to be like, I want to go see this movie now, it did a good job. That's when
mhm,
trailers should do.
Yeah.
But from a perspective of a viewer like me who loves going into movies blind, I think it told way too much. And it didn't need to be as long as it needed. And I think a good comparison is the other trailer that just dropped today that also features Jonathan Majors, but Ant-Man 3, where I think with Ant-Man 3, they are holding back so much. And thank the Lord, because there are probably so many plot points that like if this was a movie that they just wanted to make a shitload of cash, or if it was a DC property, they probably would have had like a 2-minute trailer, probably shown you clips from the beginning, middle, and end, out of order, gave you more Jonathan Majors. But no, they held back. And from what I understand, this is not the same trailer that was shown during Comic-Con.
Correct. Yep. Or even D23. Yeah.
Right. So it is a very interesting campaign, and I think why they are holding back is because this is kicking off the next phase, and they want us to be surprised. They know we're a sucker. We're a sucker for MC. They know they have, so they don't have to tell us everything.
No.
And man, they better not spoil too much of Jonathan Majors, because just this tease, like him just standing there and talking, it just brought me back and made me want to watch the season finale of Loki again.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna say he's already surpassed Thanos for me.
Really?
There is something so interesting about him. I love it when the villain walks this fine line, and maybe I probably wouldn't have said it like that if I hadn't already watched Endgame, because by Endgame, Thanos is done away with, right?
Right.
But there's just something physically, we know Jonathan Majors can probably kill a guy in a boxing ring, but there is something very interesting about how smart he is.
Mm-hmm.
The calculation and the manipulation, it's on the level of Loki. So you put Loki in Hulk or Thor's body. I find Kang to be very fascinating. And granted, we haven't started his whole plot line, or we have, but we haven't.
Right.
I don't know. I'm now rambling, so save me, Will. What were your thoughts on the Ant-Man 3 trailer?
I really, really enjoyed it. It was, to your point about not giving away too much, it did what it needed to do, in the sense that it set up how we are getting into the quantum realm, in that Cassie's messing with things that she should be messing with.
Yeah.
And it sets everything in motion. And then when we get in, but also, I just remember how much I just adore Paul Rudd, and why the Ant-Man films have worked, and also as we've gotten with Avengers Endgame, and why Scott Lang is just a fun character to follow whenever because he really is the regular guy who just happened to fall into a super suit. So there's that everyman appeal to him, and so so it was refreshing to see that in the trailer. But also, I think the story seems like it's going to be a bit darker than some of the previous two Ant-Man films. I mean, I think there'll still be the element, Peyton Reed's still going to have the funny elements of it. It's just, that's part of the stock and trade of Ant-Man and how he's directed these films in the past. But I think it seems that this kick-in, that it is sort of the kickoff film for the next phase, and you have, as you well put, about how Kang is going to be the villain and how they introduced him. It definitely is going to have, I think, a darker edge to it. Not Thor Dark World darkness, but definitely more so than what we've been used to in an Ant-Man film. So I'm really, really looking forward to it because I think other than, obviously we got Black Panther Wakanda Forever coming up in a few weeks, but
Mhm.
you know, overall, I think you and I both talked about this. Phase 4 has been kind of disappointing on the theatrical side, with the exception of Spider-Man, and even that was kind of end of like, you know, I guess it was Phase 4, but it just feels detached from the rest of Phase 4 because Shang-Chi had some good moments, but overall theatrically, it's been kind of lackluster compared to
Right.
what we had prior to it. So, so I think this is a real going to, obviously the jury's still out with Black Panther 2. I'm sure it's going to be great, but I think moving into the next phase, we will get back to that three, at phase 3 level types of films that we've gotten kind of used to.
Maybe.
I'm
Maybe.
hoping,
I,
but then
I
again,
think,
I'm
yeah.
hope I'm hoping. I mean, it could just be that that we really are getting saturated with this content to the place where it's like maybe they do need to like let the foot off the accelerator a little bit and let some space happen between the TV properties and film properties, because maybe it's just getting to be too much.
Right. Right. Or it's just the level of saturation we're not familiar with, where in a way we feel like we have to watch everything, but we
Hmm.
honestly don't. I mean,
Yeah.
some of these characters you're going to like more than others. Some of
Hmm.
these stories you're going to like more. Now, to understand the whole tapestry, maybe, but yeah,
But
like if
but you're right, because I mean I felt like I needed to watch What If, and then when we got around to Multiverse of Madness, I was like, I really didn't really need didn't really need to have to watch it, because
no,
it was disconnected from everything that happened in What If, as far as
honestly, it
yeah.
kind of it, I wouldn't say it ruined, but it tainted our viewing experience of Multiverse of Madness, because if you know the What If Doctor Strange episode, then
Hmm.
that's what we wanted Multiverse of Madness to be.
Yeah, yeah,
It wasn't.
yeah. So
It wasn't. So I think maybe it's more when you're playing in these TV shows with familiar characters, it's harder then to go and see them on the bigger screen.
mhm.
Um, but it also, like, I will admit, up until that what if episode, I had no interest in Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
Like there's all sorts of things. But we'll see. Anyways, we have a bunch to talk about, so
yeah, yeah,
I'm kind of like moving along here.
yeah.
Even though I like am going from something that I love to talk about, which is the MCU, to something that Will likes to like force me to talk about, which would be DC. So with DC, um, the Flash season 9, which is currently in production, final season. I still haven't watched pretty much any of season 8, but they have released photos that show Javisha Leslie is back, not as Batwoman per se, but she will be playing the role of Red Death. So who is Red Death, Will?
Yeah, so in the comics, Red Death is the Earth 52 Batman who had a bunch of Robins as a sidekick, like multiple other Batmans on other multiverses had. But over time, his Robins kept getting killed, and Bruce Wayne on that Earth basically just went into a murderous rampage and started collecting other people's powers, including that Earth's Flash, and merged with Barry Allen, and in the process of doing so, got corrupted with the Speed Force, and uh, basically became a villain. And it was the whole like death metal run in the DC Comics a few years ago. I read some of it, wasn't really enamored with it, so I didn't really follow it too closely. But looks like, of course, fast forward to the Arrowverse, and they are adapting. Instead of it being Bruce, they're going to have it as Ryan, and looks like she's going to be the Red Death. And I know I want to say they teased it some last season or yeah, during the Armageddon, if I recall, with whenever they fast forwarded to I think episode 4 of season 8, where they were in the future and Thawne had married Iris and all. But so yeah, that's the yeah. So there was a paparazzi Canadagraphs who always is like posting like behind the scenes photos. Posted some late last week of Javicia on set in the Red Death costume. So that's a little bit of season 9 spoilers coming for folks who want to have it.
Speaking about wanting things or folks wanting things, Black Adam had a big opening weekend.
Yeah, it did.
Which I kind of knew it would. I was actually even gonna tempted to go watch it, get it out of the way. But then snow happened and life happened, so I didn't make it out there. Which and I started seeing the instant reactions of like, this movie sucks. But now on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 90%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad people are having fun with the movie.
Yeah. I mean, not everything has to be like earth-shattering. Sometimes it's just fun to have us a popcorn film, and we both noted it's a popcorn film, and we'll get to it. But yeah, it did well. I mean, I think it surpassed Shazam and almost passed Aquaman as the highest domestic opening for a DCEU film, 67 million domestic, and it was The Rock's highest grossing film, which, I mean, hats off to him. I mean, he's been passion project for him for 10 years or whatever. So still, it did well, and it made 140 million globally. So it's doing well. It will cost 195 million to make, so it'll probably at least break even this upcoming weekend, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, definitely. Probably part of the reason why people went to go see it, though, is because of the rumor and the speculation and the Easter egg that turned out to actually be true. But spoiler alert, Henry Cavill actually does show up at the very, very end of Black Adam. And it's been announced today, I think, that he is officially returning to the DCEU as Superman. So we're going to get that movie probably in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, at the earliest 2025. But yeah, Henry dropped it on his Instagram today. Actually, he released it himself that he was back, and he is back as Superman. And yeah, and it was very interesting. Just a lot of behind the scenes stuff that was going on. I think apparently it had been in the works for a while as far as this announcement, but I think Superman was going to appear apparently in the film, but at first it was just going to be like the Shazam version, where it's just like from the neck down. But I guess The Rock flexed and was able to get Henry in the film, and the rest is history. So he is back and will be doing multiple films. So we'll see Man of Steel 2, like I said, probably at the earliest 2025. That's best case. Yeah, because I mean, best case, probably a little bit later.
I'm going to be so old, and so will Henry Cavill by that point.
Forever young, my friend.
And then Ben Affleck will be Batman, and he'll just be rolling around in bat suit like with a walker.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
But I guess the people really wanted this old man Superman with old man bats.
Well, it's after all the hits DC has been taking lately, I'm sure they're happy to get whatever wins they can get.
Oh my God. I just thought about that movie that came out in the 2000s. I think it was called Wild Hogs. And all of these older, Morgan Freeman definitely was in this. I'm pretty sure. I'm about 80% sure. but it was like they were a biker gang, but they were all old actors. Famous actors too. So basically what you're telling me is the DCU is going the Wild Hogs route. And we're going to have old man bats, old man soups. Gal Gadot doesn't age, so she'll be fine.
Yep. Old man Aquaman.
Chris Pine will probably make an appearance, though, if Wonder Woman's around, like in the most unorthodox way. They'll definitely have him appear, and he'll probably be cruising around in something. We're definitely not going to have Ezra Miller, thank God.
Nope.
And Jason Momoa also doesn't old, so 50-50. Okay, yeah. I'll make peace with it. I'm so fun story. I didn't do this intentionally, guys. I really didn't. My mind, I've had a wild day. But I inadvertently started watching Kind of Funny review Black Adam.
Huh.
Oh my God. Greg Miller goes off on a tangent, and then I'm like, okay, I need to stop because but this is hilarious. Oh man.
Yeah. It's so I laugh every time you like rag on DC because I know it's like it's a love relationship, even though you try to make it a love-hate. You hate watch it, but I know you love it.
Yeah. Oh, I am okay. Well, this is like more of a post-show thing, so we're gonna move along. The last bit of news. Okay, I'm going to try to say this. A new Star Wars film is in the works with Damon Lindelof co-writing the script and filmmaker Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy from Miss Marvel directing. Sources have confirmed from Hollywood Reporter and Deadline. So this is another thing we're not going to get until like 2025, if ever, because 9 times out of 10, Star Wars will pull what DC pulls and announce 25 Star Wars projects, and we only get maybe 5 of them.
Yeah, I did. There was a little bit extra to that. So apparently there was a secret writers room with Lindelof and another person, Justin Britt Gibson, who has also and apparently Dave Filoni was also part of this writers room, and they are hammering out a script that for something it's a standalone film that is going to take place after the Rise of Skywalker, but doesn't involve the Skywalkers. So we'll see. Like you said, we got announcements before, and we're still waiting for that Rogue Squadron release date, right? Well, actually, it's been put on the shelf. Sorry.
I was gonna say.
So yeah. So we'll see it. We'll see what happens there. I mean, I think they're just going to continue to probably do the TV thing as long as they can until they have something they know it's going to work. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, these are really, I have to say, one thing we've not talked about when it comes to House of Dragon is the titles of the episodes are always so on point.
Yep.
I mean, the last 2 episodes the first one is called The Green Council, and then the last episode is called The Black Queen. Like, perfect. Just admirable. So we've come to an end with this beloved show. Yeah. Season 1 ended with Viserys' death. Okay, what we have got for the last 2 weeks, I've been really thinking about this, Will. We have gotten part 1 and part 2 of an epilogue for season 1 because. See that episode with Viserys' last episode was just like there was so much, and I know not a lot of action, but mentally a lot of stuff was happening, a lot of things were being tied up, and we knew the moment that man would take his last breath, like the game was about to change, and it did. Both episodes had this very unsettling tone, and it was very foreboding, and I think why a lot of viewers, from what I understand at least, in my own opinion as well, leans towards this being like a bit critical of both of these episodes is just because okay, like we're not going to get this show for another year or longer.
Yeah.
I want to see some deaths. Like I was fully prepared. Trust me, Will. I was fully prepared to go into, especially this last episode. Rhaenyra dies. Like
Mm,
I am fully prepared for that happening sooner rather than later. There's just something about her where I'm like, you're not going to make it long. So because of that, I was also not expecting the one death that did happen
mm,
in the episode or episodes, because I think this is between the two of them really the one death that does occur, the one big death. And it makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Because you have both of these queens, emphasis on queens, between Alicent and Rhaenyra, who very quickly realize their power and how whoever strikes first, like they're going to be more in the wrong than
Hmm.
if you just wait. But unfortunately, Rhaenyra had to basically sacrifice his son to start
Yeah.
a war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. I was one thing about Alicent in in the ninth episode, the Green Council. Um, I like go back and forth on her so much, which I know the writers want me to do,
Hmm.
but I can defend her when she's logically playing this game. But the fact that her first move after finding out that Viserys is dead is to go tell her father, like, I'm like, girl, wake the heck up.
Yeah.
and then and Olivia Cook played the part beautifully, but then she was so shocked when everybody on the council revealed that they've been plotting how to get rid of Rhaenyra since day one.
Hmm.
Like, Allison, what have you been doing? I mean, you're showing off your feet, but come on, girl, like get your head in the game. And she kind of does, but man, she put her she's
I'm
putting
glad.
all of her chips on the wrong son.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up about Alicent, because especially with episode 9, because when you were talking about that, I had even made it in my notes, about the use of power,
Yeah.
and Rhaenys, whenever, well, a couple things, they there were some things she did right, like you noted, but there were also some things she did wrong. One of which was, uh, allowing a potentially powerful ally in Rhaenys get locked away,
Right.
because you know, because at that, given that, um, there was already, you know, issues there with how, everybody thought that Rhaenyra and Daemon had killed her son.
Hmm.
So, there was an opening there that she could have exploited, or Otto could have exploited, to fully bring House Valerian into the fold with Hightower.
Hmm.
So she misplayed that. But then, bigger thing to me is how the speech that Rhaenys gives to Alicent about, have you ever thought about seizing the throne yourself?
Right.
And the realization that either Alicent, either one of two things that it happened. Either one, she didn't think about it at all because it's just the mores of the time in Westeros, and the architecture of that society being such a patriarchal society, didn't even cross her mind that, I could actually seize the throne for myself. Or the other thought could be that she sees and saw how hard it is just to get people to even buy into the fact that Rhaenyra could be the ruler of there in King's Landing. So even though she did think about it, she was just like, no one will ever see me as a legitimate queen because of reasons. So
Right.
but I thought, but I really thought that was one as far as, because for me, I have to say these two episodes, even a message you like about this last night. I'm glad that we're actually talking about them together, because you're right. They are like an epilogue to season one.
Yeah.
And personally, I personally found them amazing because, and maybe it's because, I'm newer. I'm new to the Game of Thrones, and I didn't have the 8 years of like structure that people had gotten used to as far as how they have like structured these things. So I came from it, fresh. So for me, it being an epilogue and not going the route that has traditionally gone in the past, from what I understand, was okay with me. And,
right.
So it didn't mess with my, there are some, the criticisms I have about things are not necessarily about the way the stories were structured. It's more about the decisions that characters made.
Right. And I mean, I may come off as like, I don't really care for these two episodes, and I think I even told you this, Will, but just because I say that, we're talking like, I'm going to rate it at 9.5. Because when I compare it to other episodes, like they're 10s, but it's so hard when you've had so many episodes now at such a high high level. And I still think my favorite episode of the season is episode 3. And I declared that when we were first talking about that episode, and I still stand by that. Yeah. But I do want to go back to what you were talking about with power, and flip it and go to what we see during the Black Queen episode with Power and Rhaenyra, where there was that wonderful moment where she realizes that she can't be like Daemon and go brute force and take her birthright back. And I love her line, like, I don't want to be a ruler of ashes. Yeah. And for those who have watched Game of Thrones, like that, there is some events that happen where you're like, really? Targaryen, that's how you want to rule? But that's what I found so fascinating about the Black Queen episode is even though there is Game of Thrones, the Targaryens are so, you just have like a handful of them, if not one or two, that you're following out throughout the whole series. So you don't really understand their lore or what they were like as rulers. You just hear about it. And so now we're fully getting it. And I think you really understood. I think overall this season has really shown how the Targaryens are there's so much duality in them where and to go back to my favorite character, Viserys, may he rest in peace. He's a father and a king. And it's there's a lot of conflicting thing. He's a brother and a king. And the Targaryens want to rule. They have the power. They have the strength with the dragons. But they also have a, what do you call it? They almost want to, they have this ambition that blinds them to the point where they're just destroying everything. They're not ruling over everything. They're destroying it. Yeah.
And their destruction doesn't necessarily have to be with the dragons. I mean, it's a lot of it's just their decision making.
Exactly. Their decision making, completely yeah, it's just, I really like that scene. It reminded you how smart she was. And then then I found it interesting that the scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra, the choking scene.
Yeah.
It was such I still am processing it. Because these two, and yes, we're talking about an uncle and a niece.
Yeah.
Talking about an uncle and a niece. Uh, uh, two people who just also lost a child.
Hmm.
Just lost the child. Literally, as we'll get into that scene. And then you have this dispute, and in a way, it reminded me of early on when he takes the dragon egg and she goes and gets it back.
Hmm.
And that face off, and just it's just, I understand why they have it. I am not mad that they have it. I understand like domestic abuse and all of that. Um, but I think that it was more telling about about this is a first not just for Westeros, but for a Targaryen. And Targaryens, as rulers, always the males have ruled. And so
Hmm.
you have Daemon, who's a character who we know has wanted to sit on that throne for just about as long as Corlys has wanted to sit on that throne.
Hmm.
And now he realizes that the closest he'll get to it is through his wife slash niece, who's also willing to contemplate giving it all away. And but at the same time, she would be doing that because she was also thinking, I want to protect my family. The throne has done nothing but kill people I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she was looking at the bigger picture as we were just talking about. And as you rightly noted, I mean, she in her decision making was like, I, and I think about the table and how it was a literal and figurative like representation that like when they put the fire in and they were starting to be around the table and talk about how they could get all the resources and everything from the various lords in the kingdom, like the flame. It was just like she doesn't want to rule over ashes. And to your and getting back to the scene itself, and the power dynamic again, because Damon, when he lost it was when he realized that whenever she talked about the story of the Song of Ice and Fire, and that Viserys told her and didn't tell him. And to your point, he's always, he did have eyes on that throne at some point, and even helping his niece wife get to the throne. He still, that's his end goal, and one of his end goals. And so when he loses it like that, and starts to strangle her, it was one, it was on brand with Damon. I mean, anybody who has, I mean, I think a lot of people have had this romanticized notion of him, just because the way Matt Smith plays that character, and he is a very charismatic character. But I mean, we're looking at a man who has like murdered his wife before and done any number of things. And so to me, whenever he did that, while it was very jarring to see, especially given how we have seen their relationship develop, um, it was also very in on brand with Damon, and also very on brand a lot of times with what happens with domestic abuse, because I mean these people are a lot of times are very charming characters and stuff. So I thought there was a lot. I think the writers and the way that scene was performed and portrayed
Right.
was very, very telling about many things that we have seen over the development of the previous 9 episodes and to this point. And then
Right.
even and even to like whenever she was and whenever the whole juxtaposition of like the childbirth and and things that were going on in during whenever she was having a miscarriage, and how people reacted to it and stuff. It was a lot of parallels between what was going on, the anguish of learning about her father and her birthright being taken away from her, as far as the political machinations of, people usurping the throne. So I mean, it was just, that's why everything about these two episodes, with the two sides of the coin, with the greens and the blacks, was just really just riveting television. And I mean, I was just like, I can't wait for like season 2 for the actual Dance of the Dragons, and hopefully it'll continue that same kind of character beats that we have, and doesn't get just lost into dragons fighting in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about, we've had a lot of gory, unsettling bursts happen.
Mm-hmm.
Bursts that end up typically with 1-2 people dying.
Mm-hmm.
And it all goes back to the very, like, that line that Rhaenyra's mom says to her in the first episode, is that the woman's battlefield is in giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why that has been repeated, because the more we talk about it, the more that it becomes clear to me that in Game of Thrones, we're used to that being basically a man's game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have your female characters and they do some stuff, but no, it's mainly the mans are the real. But no, this whole season is about queens
mm-hmm.
and princesses, and them really taking to the forefront and holding the men, even though the writers do a very good job about giving these females power, but also confining it to make it feel restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
And make them feel like they have to play a certain part.
Yeah.
That's the best way to think it. But I think that's why we've seen so many bursts. And I watched people watch this episode and react to this episode. And yeah, this whole season proves why I don't think I'll ever give birth. I don't want it. I know we're in the 21st century. There's these things called hospitals and doctors, but I'm sorry.
It's not having been in the room twice. It's not as antiseptic as you just like the woman lying there on the back and stuff. It's not a. Yeah, it's.
I mean, at the end of the day,
it's an intense period. It's an intense period of time, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like, just make your girl, your 16-year-old watch House of Dragons season 1, and she'll never want to have sex. There you go. It's perfect. Like, that's perfect, what happened.
Perfect birth control.
Okay. Jesus, interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But see, it doesn't actually, and a lot of people were, I've seen both sides of that. Should they portray it, have this part of the show and stuff? But I mean, folks are fine watching beheadings. So, so what's the big deal about watching very, sometimes traumatic situations with birth and stuff? I mean, it's, we can, is it like too real for them or something? I don't know. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a very interesting dynamic there.
It's just because the tension that also occurs in these scenes, whether it be Emma's death and basically her husband signs off on her getting a C-section while she's still awake.
Yeah.
Or it's Lena's death, where she realizes what's going to happen and she's like, hell no, I'd rather burn to death, which girl, I don't think that would have been, I don't think that's a nicer way to go. But okay.
Yeah.
From what I understand,
I guess she had her agency there. Maybe that's just it too. I mean, I think maybe that's, well, because like with Emma, I mean, Viserys made the decision for her.
Yeah.
Rhaenyra made her decision before Damon was standing there anguishing over what to do. And in this episode, Rhaenyra was very clear. She's like, y'all stay here. Where's Damon? But stay. She kept telling the maidens to stay back. I'm going to do this.
I mean, that is also goes back to how we were first introduced to Emma D'Arcy as Rhaenyra, where there is a birth scene and then her immediately having to walk all the way to the Queen's chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it wasn't horror, but it's just very emotionally taxing. And so the fact that then in the final episode, she literally rips the baby from her vagina, you're like, yeah, that lines up.
Yeah.
That makes sense for that character.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And it was hard. It was hard to watch her after her giving birth, to see her like struggle across the palace to, just because they wanted to know what color the kid was and what hair, if it had white hair. And it was, yeah. But I mean, but I think it just, to your point, they set this up from the very beginning, whenever the line was given that the woman's battlefield, this is her, this is,
and it goes beyond the birth. It's the bloodlines and how Rhaenyra screwed everything up when she had her first 3 sons, Luke, Jace, and Joffrey, and the fact that they're bastards, and how that has helped allow Otto to finish the game that he started back in the first episode when he sent Alicent to Viserys' chambers. Like, something I keep thinking about is, despite how I feel about these last 2 episodes and my, the more we talk about it, is really about how this show is so well written because everything, there's a payoff. There's a reason why things happen that you don't immediately within the episode get that payoff. No, it takes maybe 5 or 10 episodes later, but there are consequences. And that's, to me, even though I was fully prepared for, some dragon fighting, some beheadeds, some major character, mainly Rhaenyra dying, we didn't get that at the end, but I do appreciate the way it did end, because I wasn't thinking that it was going to end like that. And so I was actually shocked. I was like, what? How long is this? I was like, oh shit, they're about to shit. Holy shit. What? And then the actor who plays Aemon does wonderful one-eye acting, because to me, yes, Aemon is a bit off, a bit crazy, but that final moment, there is real regret. There is real, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Even though I think the odds are in his favor, I just also know that from that moment, like, and maybe it had to do with the fact that they literally did grow up together.
But do you? And see, I will. Whenever I had a couple thoughts on that. One, I think you're right. I mean, there is the fact that I did fuck up by killing my nephew, but also, given all the things that action has taken, I think he also was self-aware enough to know that I just started a war.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's not a doubt in my mind that he knows, because I don't have to have seen this on screen to know very well that, just like Rhaenyra had that talk with her sons before, I am sure Alicent said something to Aemon.
Oh yeah, especially given that she gave Otto the part, the page from the book. So I mean, you're right. I mean, that conversation definitely was had off screen.
Right. Otto can have full control of the council, but her sons are a bunch of mama's boys. So, like, I mean, I'm putting my money on that Aemon's going to kill his brother, but in the long run, because he wants the power. But I also think that she had that talk, and he really he screwed up. And I think, but I love how I totally understand how he got to that point. To me, it didn't come out of left field.
No.
To me, it made sense. To me, what kind of was a bit like, well, come on, dude, was when the little kid, when was it Luke? It was Luke, right?
Yeah, it was Luke, yeah.
Jace's older one. Yeah. Luke, the moment you see the dragon, you go the other way.
Yeah. It's like, nope. Oh, yeah. As soon as you see it, yeah. As soon as he arrives at, Baratheon, yeah.
That's the one part where I'm like, really?
Okay, yeah.
You're stupid enough to go in there?
Yeah. That's that Targaryen decision making again.
Yeah, or him just being like, everything's going to be fine. And I was surprised when Baratheon was kind of like, not in my, nope. Because he knows too. Everyone knows the moment one of the kids dies, the moms will start a war. Yeah,
because Alicent, Viserys held Alicent back years ago with the eye, and there's no, So now, all the guardrails are down. So you're right. I mean, it's everybody knows. I mean, again, Rhaenyra was able to, hold back Daemon. Daemon was ready to throw fists. Everybody's ready to throw fists. Rhaenyra was like, nope. Alice, again, the two women.
But it's interesting. It's for a very different reason.
Yeah.
It's for power. Mm-hmm. But with Alicent and Rhaenyra, everything they've done, and it's all disguised as being a ploy for the crown, but really, because of their positions, that's what it's disguised as. But at the end of the day, they are mother bears who are like, you will not hurt any of my children. I don't care if they're bastards or not. They are my children. Do not. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what Otto has done to manipulate Alicent to the point where she is.
Yeah.
And so I think even though like their war, it's for a very maternal reason, as opposed to what we're used to is more of a, you took away my crown.
Right. Yeah. Because up to that point, Rhaenyra was like, let's keep the peace. She was trying to like find a diplomatic way to restore what was rightfully hers.
Right. And also, I mean, like, these two people, Alicent, you only know like the cliff notes of the Song of Ice and Fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The full thing of it. And your husband was all drinking mother's milk or whatever you call poppy.
Yeah, milk poppy, yep.
Why would you like be like, oh, that's it, my son's gonna be king? Like, dude. Alicent, you're killing me. But I'd rather have characters where they frustrate me because I'm like, I know why you're doing it. I don't like it. And that's frustrating. Then, really?
Yeah, yeah. Because we all, like the penultimate episode, we all were like, Dracarys, damn it, Dracarys. But then Rhaenys was like, it's not my war to start.
Yeah.
And then I think, and it talk about bookends and how things parallel. That was the expression that Aemon had when Vigar, killed Luke and Syrax.
Right.
It was that same look. It's like, it was not my battle to start, but I effed up and did it. Yeah.
And then he's going to F up again and kill his brother eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, we'll all applaud then, because everybody in the kingdom knows that Aemon II is not worthy of the crown.
He's probably the character where I'm constantly like, who are you?
Yeah.
You're so weird.
Yeah. Why can't we kill him?
It's not even that, because we've just heard about things and seen a little, but we haven't really. and this goes back to me having watched Game of Thrones, where when I tell you the villains on Game of Thrones, they were really like, can we kill them?
Yeah. No, it's just this general like spoiled incompetence, like, yeah. This is more like, it's like, dude, you're not worthy. There's whenever, so it's more of that. But
I was just gonna say, hats off. We finally got name drops. Okay, come on. Between freaking, they said Stark. They talked about the North. Can we get some Starks next season? I would love to see that dynamic. We got Aaron name drop, and then Baratheon, which Robert's Rebellion, 200 years in the future. But I guess some of my closing thoughts are, I hope that we see more of the world through this war. Because I think that it was very good to have this first season, which is called House of Dragon, really focus on this one family. We're stuck in the same castle pretty much 80% of the time. But it did open up a world, but Westeros is grand, and there's a lot of families, and I just think about all of the development we got with the Valerian family. I hope that we really go to these other places more and spend some time and as we piece together what led up to the events of Song of Ice and Fire.
For me, I completely agree with that, especially like you said, the world building, and it was great. A few closing thoughts. I know we didn't talk about Corlys's return and how he kind of played, how he inserted himself into the situation, and he and Rhaenys made their peace with everything and decided to decide with the House Black. But there's that. There's also, it also, you talked about the world building. It was great to see the map, the table, because again, as you noted, not only did we see that map, but see how grand Westeros is, and here all the, we've heard like the stepstones and all these places that are going to play integral parts in this Dance of the Dragons that we'll see in the subsequent seasons. But also really building out that world, and also I know there were a lot of time jumps and everything, but now that we have ended the season and we could see it in its totality, they were necessary in order to really propel us through this, to get us to where we are, where second and subsequent seasons will focus on the conflict as far as the actual war. But we needed this foundational season to really set the table, and all the belligerents to be able to appreciate what's to come.
I agree. I think that's part of the reason why these last two episodes were so jarring, almost, is because there weren't time jumps for episodes. Everything was still, and it was done, especially in that first episode, the Green Council, it was done purposely because of the mourning. And another beautiful opening sequence, might I add, with that, and how they structured that whole thing. That map, the moment they stuck the fire in, I was like, holy shit, that is so cool. I said it, nobody around me. I'm like, oh my God, I want that. That is awesome.
It's like, I was like, okay, put that on my Christmas list of things. I want a table like that.
But you're absolutely right. Like, between the time jumps and like what I said earlier, every moment, every line seemed to have a point and a purpose. They didn't overwrite anything, spend too much time at any point, because they spent just enough time so that you understood the motivations, and so that how this is all playing out makes sense. And nothing is too far-fetched except for when Jace went into that castle.
Yeah.
The only thing where I'm like, dude, and yeah, I'm sure people are going to say, oh, he was young and naive. It's like, yeah, but I know he's a bastard, but he's still half Targaryen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, you can't be that stupid.
He can't be, but
No.
I'll disclose with this my final thought. And Viserys, said it best, especially with this ending. The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They're a power that should never be trifled with.
I have not even remembered that line, but I'm just gonna hats off to you, Will, for writing that down, and that is so true. But man, are we gonna get some dragon on dragon action next season?
Oh yeah.
All right. On that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you
On
can
Twitter.
find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.